every day, Baruch Hashem, I try to do as much as I can to help people, to learn more, to do more. And of course, from time to time, I'll make a mistake, I'll do tshuva, and start again. It's like every other person, or at least try to be. Now, sometimes, there's going to be mistakes that come under your belt that simply, you never even thought it's a mistake. In fact, you thought you're right. In fact, you thought you're so right that you were annoyed that you're even questioned. You're annoyed that you're even questioned. And I'll give you an example. Last week, I was invited to be on a radio show with Rabbi Levine, and to talk about the whole issue of the 𝕊𝕕𝕕𝕒𝕕𝕒 debacle, and to discuss it, to bring it out and share the warning across the board on this 𝕊𝕕𝕕𝕒𝕒𝕒 and his missionary friends that he brings. Now, Rav Levine asked me to say, because perhaps some of his audience, or even all of them, don't know who I am, perhaps to say, spend a few minutes to talk about my personal story. So the movie that I have that's about my personal life, that took an hour and a half to detail specific stories of my life, of my tshuva story and everything else, to, in essence, summarize it into, I don't know, a handful of minutes, 3 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever it was. So, okay, no problem. Personally, since I lived it and I continue to live it, I don't necessarily like telling the story, but I know it's entertaining and interesting for people, and it's also a way for people to get to know me a little bit. So I do it. Now, I've said the personal story a bunch of times, but typically when I say the personal story, it's a full lecture for, an hour and a half to 3 hours or more. I don't usually tell the story in 3 minutes. But either way, I have a goal. What's my goal? My goal is to say whatever version of the story is going to come out, and then go and tell the real story. What's the real story? The danger that Klal Yisrael has because of this 𝕊𝕕𝕒𝕒𝕒𝕒 person. So now I call into the show, and I talk, and we do the nice introductions, and then I say my story. Now, I say my story. I say, listen, I was on Wall Street, I did this, I did that, I then had a surgery that went wrong, and all hell broke loose, and then I fast forward that 7 years, and I was looking for the truth throughout this time, looking for a cure, looking for a lot of things. Eventually I met my cousin, Ephraim, I did tshuva, and Baruch Hashem, Hashem married us to open up this organization, Bezat Hashem, which today we teach Torah. I never thought I was going to be a rabbi. I ended up becoming a rabbi, an author, have a kiruv organization, and I thought I was going to be some rich guy that built yeshivot while making millions of dollars in the stock market, but apparently Hashem had a different plan for me. And that was, in essence, the introduction of 3 or 4 minutes and even less time, okay? Now, then I went into the story of what's happening with 𝕊𝕕𝕒𝕒𝕒𝕒, and we did that part. Now, the whole video, I think, was like 30-something minutes. We had it, we got it, we publicized it, and then somebody reaches out to me and says to me, hey, Rabbi, what happened between you and Rabbi Mizrahi? I said, what? What are you talking about? What do you mean what happened between you and Rabbi Mizrahi? Nothing. I love Rabbi Mizrahi. It's one of the greatest influences of my life. What are you talking about? What happened between you and Rabbi Mizrahi? Oh, you didn't mention him. So what are you talking about? I didn't mention him. No, I just heard the story that you said about, the thing with the interview with Rabbi Levine at the show, and you said that, you were Wall Street, and you did this, and then you did all this stuff, and then you met your cousin, Rabbi Ephraim, and then you went to all the story. Like, you never even mentioned Rabbi Mizrahi, so I figured, I don't know, maybe something happened between you guys. So no, chas v'shalom, nothing happened between Rabbi and Rabbi Mizrahi. Anybody that knows, I have a whole movie, my personal story, probably 10-20% of the whole movie it has to do with Rabbi Mizrahi, if not more. Every single week, I mention Rabbi Mizrahi in my lectures, and I try to make sure I quote him. I give his CDs. This CD is one of the CDs that saved my life, and I give it out thousands of copies of it over the years. What are you talking about? And something happened. I said, oh, okay, just making sure. I'm thinking to myself, what is this coming from? Why am I getting this kaparat avonot bothering me about this thing? Now it's making me feel bad. I mention him, and I think to myself, what, Rabbi Mizrahi needs this kavod or something? What, is he looking for something from me? What does he care even? He won't. Obviously, if you go ask Rabbi Mizrahi, he's not going to care. So why are you bothering me about this? On the other hand, I'm thinking, wait, did I do something wrong here? Because obviously Hashem is sending something to me for a reason. But then I'm thinking, no, why would I do something wrong? All I'm trying to do is help Am Yisrael. How could I be wrong? How could I be doing something wrong? All I'm doing is saying a story of my life in the shortest possible version, just for the sake of getting to the real story. Who cares about my personal story? Someone wants to see my personal story, goes and watches a whole big production that we made about it, and over there he's going to learn about Rabbi Mizrahi. He doesn't need to know about this now, he needs to know about Rabbi 𝕊𝕕𝕒𝕒𝕒𝕒𝕒. And then I go back and forth in my mind, and I'm thinking, I did nothing wrong. This guy that's sending me this information, that's sending me this question, is just annoying. He's annoying. He's the Yetzirah. Why? He's trying to make me think that Rabbi Mizrahi needs kavod or something, or Rabbi Mizrahi needs me to publicize him. He's more public, he's more famous than I could ever be, and you're making me think as if I need to do something. What? This is ridiculous. And I'm going back and forth in my mind, and I'm battling this over and over again, but it won't come out. It's just simply, I'm thinking, what is going on here? Baruch Hashem, I prayed, and I tried to figure out, why is this even happening? Initially, I'm thinking, it's really not an important detail. Why? It's not an important detail. Because it's not the point of the video. The video is about warning people, not my personal story. And anyway, if you want to know the full story, just go to the movie. That's the logic. That's the natural inclination. Woe to us on our natural inclination. Why? Baruch Hashem over Shabbat, praying, learning, started thinking about the whole thing again. And I said, wait a minute. As far as giving praise, technically, if you look at it, we have the entire prayer is praising Hashem. Entire prayer. You go to Nishmat Kol Chai, for example. I just open it here on Shabbat. Nishmat Kol Chai. The soul of every living person will bless your name. That He guides his world with kindness. We call Hashem kind. We call Hashem blessed. We say he's arousing all the sleeping. He just gives us everything. And in essence, in every single paragraph of our entire prayer, not just on Shabbat, every day, all we're doing is praising Hashem. Hashem needs praise? If you said yes, you're not my student. Probably the first time you're ever watching my show. Why? Because Hashem doesn't need anything. So why are we praising him in every one of our prayers? Better yet, we have Parashat Shavua. Kadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu how unique he is. He tells Am Yisrael later on in the Torah that nobody is ever going to be like Moshe Rabbeinu. Nobody ever was, nobody ever will be like Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is special. Does Moshe Rabbeinu need praise? Is Moshe Rabbeinu reading the Chumash that he's reading about himself? That when he sees it, he's going to get a good feeling in his stomach? If that's why you think Hashem put it in the Torah, you need to dig deeper. It's not the right answer. Hashem did not write in the Torah the praises on Moshe Rabbeinu, the praises on Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the praises on anybody that's of any value for their sake. Even though our natural inclination will tell us, yeah, it's nice to say something good. I always ask my husband, say something nice. I like to hear some nice things. I like to hear a compliment. Okay, you may like to hear a compliment, and generally speaking, everybody likes to hear a compliment. But that's not the reason why we say it in prayer to Hashem. That's not the reason why there's verses in the Torah that are praising Hashem. That's not the reason why there's verses in the Torah that are praising the different forefathers that we have. That's not the reason. In fact, it's also not the reason why you're supposed to give praise to your loved ones, to people that are important to you, to people that you're grateful for. The praise is really not for them as much as it is for you. Praising Hashem is for your benefit. It's for our benefit. It's not for Hashem's benefit. When you praise Hashem, you are reminding yourself how great He is, and thereby how many benefits He gives you. How merciful He is not valuable unless you realize that that very same mercy is being applied to you. Where even though we all sin, Hashem doesn't punish us right away. That kindness that He has is not very valuable unless you understand that you're appraising His kindness because you realize that He's applying that kindness on you. The praise is a reminder for you to say thank you. The praise is a reminder for you to appreciate what you have, for you to recognize what you have. The praise of Moshe Rabbeinu and the rest of the sages and the rest of the patriarchs, matriarchs, is a reminder for us where we come from and how special we are. So thereby you will appreciate it and protect it and not become one of the people that goes and becomes Christian, like unfortunately almost 1.6 million Jews in America identify themselves as Christian. Do you know why? Because they never praised their Jewish part. They never praised the God of Israel. They thought that if there's a praise, that praise has to come to themselves. The problem is when we only focus on praising ourselves, we fail to recognize the greatness of everything else. Even more so, when we fail to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we also fail to recognize how much He's giving us, to the point where we can even forget He exists, and even fall into the trap of thinking He even doesn't. When you're praising someone, it's not for them to benefit from it. It's for you to remind you that this is necessary. It's a necessary trait to practice as often as possible in order for you to elevate yourself from being an animal to being a human. That's the difference. The praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the praise of righteous people, the praise of good people, the praise of your loved ones is for yourself, much more than it is for anybody else. And so long as a person thinks that I'm only going to give praise when I determine that they deserve it, then guess what? Somehow your evil inclination will determine that no one but you deserves it. And you'll be the stingiest person on planet Earth when it comes to praises. Because you think that praising is only something that's supposed to be done on significant things, significant being determined by you. Where if somebody makes you a coffee, or somebody opens the door for you, or somebody simply tells you the time, you don't think that's deserving of praise. Somebody decides to live with you, bring a child to your life. Somebody decides to even tell you directions. You don't think that's necessarily worthy of praise. Little by little, a person that forgets that praise is necessary for themselves, to praise others for themselves, that person will become very easily removed from reality to the point where they forget that there is even a God. Because if you don't praise the man that you can see, surely you're going to forget praising the God that you can't see. Not because He doesn't have a body. He doesn't. But you're not praising Him because of that. You're not praising Him because even the things that He gives you, that you can see, you're going to justify it in some form or another that it's somehow due to your doings or your understandings. And therefore I realized that the mistake that I was making was thinking that I needed to mention Rav Mizrahi in my story because it would be good for him, not realizing that removing him or simply not mentioning him in the story is my lackings. Has nothing to do with him. He doesn't benefit one way or another. He did what he did. And there's nothing that I can do to change that. But not recognizing that, even for a moment, even accidentally, was a failure of extraordinary proportions. Why? Because this is what happens. You see, when you forget to mention that part, you think, oh, he doesn't need it. You're right, he doesn't need it. But that's not the reason why you're supposed to mention it. You're supposed to mention it because 100% of the story has to be told, meaning what was already disclosed, in order for it to be true. If you only disclose 99%, then that means that it's false. 99% truth is 100% lie. You see, Rabotai Yekarim, if you have a story, and that story is missing a pertinent fact, it's no longer a true story. Now, when it came to my personal story, there's a lot of different things I didn't tell the whole world, so that's not necessarily going to determine anything. But the things that already are known to the world, that's the image of the story. That's the book. That's the one that's motivated everybody. And the reality is that if a person watches that story in one place and sees the full story in the movie, and then he watches the story or listens to the story in another place, and he sees that, wait, although in different lectures I added new information, I generally never excluded information. But here I excluded not just information, but a key part of information, where if it wasn't for Rav Mizrahi, I wouldn't be here. Why? Because although I wanted to change, although I needed to change, there were certain tools I didn't have to change. In fact, if it wasn't for Rav Mizrahi and his extraordinary movie of Torah and science, or the movie of the debate, or the thousands of lectures that he has, of which I've listened to thousands of hours of them, an extraordinary amount of my life would be missing. How extraordinary? Virtually all of it. Because even though my dear Rav Ephraim taught me an extraordinary amount of Torah, there was a certain light that was lit that couldn't have been lit in any other way. You see, I was learning, and I continue to. But you see, a person needs to understand that a fire, or whatever it is that you're building, you can't judge what it is based on what it is now. You have to look at where there's the foundation, where does it start, where's that spark? So if anybody remembers the story, is that yes, we were changing, we were learning, we were doing a lot of different things, but still our understanding of our responsibilities in regards to intermarriage, my wife not being Jewish at the time, that was still an unsolved issue. And the reality is that if it wasn't for Rav Mizrahi teaching us the significance of knowing God versus believing in God, by showing us proofs that God actually is something you can see, not in flesh and blood like the Christians think, but through his creation. That Christianity is not a second best, but rather is 100% false, man-made, garbage, idol worship. These types of things inspired us to go from the flame that we had to a fire that couldn't have existed in any other way, that motivated my wife to completely change eternity by leaving Christianity and the idol worship and becoming the righteous tzadikah rabbanit that she is today. You see, Rabotai, it didn't just change me as far as learning new material. The most important person in my life changed the religion. And my decree, our decree, transformed from eternal Gehenom to Gan Eden. That's not a big deal. And even more so, if that didn't happen, we simply wouldn't have kids. So these three little beautiful angels that I have in my house, each one more great than the other, each one the most precious thing on planet Earth. I wish I can see them more and play with them more and learn with them more, but I have to also be responsible for some of Hashem's kids that Hashem gives me responsible for. But these three angels that HaKadosh Baruch Hu blessed us with, they wouldn't, chas v'shalom, they wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Rabbi Mizrahi. Because we were already together for many years, and we simply decided as long as we have different religions, we don't want the kids to be confused, be this, be that. Simply, we're just not going to have kids. And even though I wanted, so listen, I didn't want to have a confused kid, and it made perfect sense in our crazy minds. Which means that if it wasn't for Rav Mizrahi, there'll be three tzaddikim that were supposed to be in this world, chas v'shalom not being. There wouldn't be a family. There wouldn't be a kiruv organization. There wouldn't be a book named Yasem Midbar Le'Agam Mayim that Baruch Hashem has inspired thousands of people so far. There wouldn't be a movie that has inspired millions of people, and even another movie that has changed the lives of millions of other people. There wouldn't be a DVD. There wouldn't be 25,000 people that ate in Eretz Yisrael just last year. The whole organization of Be'ezrat Hashem simply wouldn't exist. You see, you could all say, yeah, but maybe it would have happened another way. And guess what? It didn't. It didn't happen another way. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent us a messenger. And then he sent us another messenger. And the combination of those two messengers, the combination of the two angels that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent us, Rabbi Mizrahi and Rabbi Ephraim, we took them, and we took everything we possibly can from them, to learn everything we can, to observe everything we can, and to apply everything we can. And guess what? It changed our life, and thereby created lives, and thereby created eternities. Changed not just the eternity that I had and my wife had, but also the eternity of many other people. To exclude that from the story may seem inconsequential when we are self-absorbed and think that the world revolves around us. But the reality is, to exclude that from the story makes the story 100% a lie, no different than the New Testament. And that's why, as soon as I realized how wrong I am of excluding what seems like an inconsequential small part of the story to an unappreciative person, I realized I have to fix it. So as soon as Shabbat was out, I went myself on our channel and immediately removed the lecture, asked the team to remove it from any place that it was published, until we figure out how to fix it. Why? Because already a few thousand people have watched it. Baruch Hashem, it was Shabbat, so it was less than typical, but still, there was a few thousand views from different places. How do I fix showing the greatest level of ingratitude that I've ever shown in my life to the person that I'm most grateful for? A person that changed my life, a person that brought life into my life, a person that simply changed and steered my path to hell and turned it into heaven. How do I fix it? How do I fix being ungrateful even if it was unintentional? Even if it was only for a couple of days? It still caused damage. Why? In Shemaim, it went up there and says, oh, Yaron Reuven, grateful. Yeah, right. Kfui tova. What do you mean? He helped so many people, such a nice guy, this, that. No. What do you mean? You know that guy, he didn't even say thank you that one time. He didn't say thank you to the guy that actually helped him. Go to heaven. That's what it was. So we have to stop it. And after first stopping the damage, removing the lecture, we figured out the best way to do it is to first off remove that part from that video altogether. So therefore that lie doesn't exist. Now, again, according to some people, say, no, it's not a lie, just an incomplete truth. And guess what? An incomplete truth is 100% a lie. Because an incomplete truth could be missing the most critical part. So we had to change it, we had to remove it. But then we had to make up for the part that there was still a couple of thousand people that watched it. How do we fix that? By doing this. Publicly apologizing to Rabbi Mizrahi, publicly apologizing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and promising that B'ezrat Hashem we'll do better. We'll be more grateful, and not assume that anything we do is for anybody else. Because the reality is, the entire Torah and all of its mitzvot are only for yourself. B'ezrat Hashem, this too will be another lesson for all of us to learn. How to do better, even when we think we're right. I was sure I was right. I was sure I was right because my mind said that it's not a big deal, and I was certain that I was right. And guess what, Rabbi? I was wrong. Why? Because I thought that the thank you, the praise, was for somebody else. When we thank somebody, when we're grateful for somebody, it's to remind ourselves. It's to remind ourselves that we're human. It's to remind ourselves that we're striving to be human. It's to remind ourselves that we're not alone in the world. It's to remind ourselves that we have to aim to be better. Whatever those people are supposed to get, they're going to get, and it's not going to be from you anyway. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to decide what they're going to get. That praise, that gratitude that you show is not going to add to their life. Whatever Hashem wants to give them, He'll give them with or without you. The praise, the gratitude is for you. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed us this in the Torah in every aspect. In our prayer, in our Torah, in our Tanakh, in our Gemara. We're constantly praising. We're praising the sages, we're praising the forefathers, and we're praising Hashem. Now you can say that the sages need to be recognized, and you should say thank you because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have a Torah that we understand, and so on. And you can say that we're praising the forefathers because they were unique, and they were beautiful, they were great, and they were amazing. And they deserve to be praised. But what are you going to say about Hashem? He deserves to be praised. He needs a praise? No. You need the praise. I need the praise. I need to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I need to praise and thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I need to praise every single person that has simply changed my life. And one of the most extraordinary ones was Rabbi Mizrahi, and still is Rabbi Mizrahi. We've worked together every day since I started with this Kiruv world. Whether it's his lectures or my lectures, his pages or my pages, his Baalei Tshuva, my Baalei Tshuva, and of course, I'm always just simply trying to catch up. But the reality is that there is no catching up. It's not, one of those things that happens in a, you can just do Kiruv for 25 years and somebody can just catch up. It doesn't exist. It's like saying I catch up to Rabbi Akiva. There's no catching up. They're simply trying to emulate. Somebody's great. Somebody's amazing. Have kinat sofrim. Have a healthy type of jealousy. I want to be just as successful in helping Neshamot as he is. And that's what we try to do. And the most important thing that a person can do in order to achieve that is first and foremost, titen emet liYaakov. Give truth, emet, to Yaakov. Who's Yaakov? It starts with you. It starts with ourselves. And then it's everybody else. As long as we're honest to ourselves, B'ezrat Hashem will become much easier to be honest to everybody else. Thank you again, Rabbi Mizrahi. Kadosh Baruch Hu yivarech oto b'kol mikol kol, chaim arukim shlemim meleim Torah mitzvot, gemilut chasadim, to him, to his wife, to his children, to his nechadim B'ezrat Hashem, to all of his students, and to all of ours, to all of the other wonderful people that have helped us, to all of the other wonderful people that have learned with us, and even to all of the wonderful people that have criticized us. As long as that criticism was coming from a good place, and not simply criticism just for the sake of annoying us. As long as that criticism was for the sake of the Torah, and not for the sake of ego, we appreciate that too. HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless each and every single one of you. And hopefully in Shemaim they'll have some mercy on us. That at the very least, we made a mistake for a couple of days, for a lecture, for a couple of, perhaps they'll forgive us in Shemaim by our appreciation, and even more so, our publicity, that we can all learn from it. B'ezrat Hashem, each and every single one of us will use this as another way to connect closer to Hashem by recognizing the fact that we have to appreciate Him and everybody else that He sends our way for ourselves.